Nice.
Yeah, we have to let people in.
Yeah, people are coming in. Okay. Well, maybe we'll wait a couple more seconds to see who else shows up. Um, but how's it going, Max?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, how's it going for you?
Going good.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't we kick it off? Let's try it out. Okay.
Okay.
So I've got a an introduction from and for the IEA and for this little talk um that we're gonna listen to from Max Gausepohl. Um, the Institute for Electronic Arts, the IEA, is dedicated to supporting the contemporary artists, um, dedicated to supporting contemporary artists through its primary focus on residency programs. These residencies provide artists with the opportunity to engage in vital research using electronic media, new technologies, and print media within the arts disciplines, while also benefiting local, regional, and global communities. In addition to residencies, the IEA supports evolving electronic studio research labs, hosts national and international conferences, and encourages projects in experimental media, arts, print, and publications. The IEA residencies and public engagement are thanks to the Shine Joseph Endowment, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the New York Council for the Arts. You can learn much about the IEA since its founding in 1997 via our website and social media platforms. Max Gausepohl is a composer and sound designer from Hamburg, Germany. In his work as a film sound designer, he is continuously drawn to finding a strong and meaningful relation between two modalities, the visual and the auditory. This exploration implies finding cross-modal similarities, which has deepened his understanding of similar gestures and dynamics in different fields of sensory experience. This insight serves as the foundation for the current research on the perceptual relationship between sound and space, which applies to the development of new performative tools and techniques that integrate spatiality into the process of designing abstract sound. So there's my script.
Yeah, thank you.
You want to take it off?
Sure.
Okay.
So yeah, welcome to my talk, and thanks for being here. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, my name is Max Gausepohl. You already introduced me. I'm a sound designer and sound artist from Hamburg, Germany. Currently in this residency for 1.5 weeks now. And I'm very thankful, first off. I'm very thankful for being here. Thanks for inviting me. And it's a great opportunity to work here. Thanks to Alfred University and also Miles and you for taking care. Yeah. So I will first talk a bit about my own personal artistic background and then move on to the project and speak a bit about the project, how it came to be, and what's the idea behind it, what's my research questions. Then I'm going to give a brief overview over the technical side, my approach to the sound design and these tools that I'm developing. And since it's like a spatial audio project, I'm also going to talk a bit about space and what means spatial audio and what's like spatial auditory perception a little bit, because it's a very interesting topic. And then I'm gonna speak a bit about the sound synthesis side of it. So it's like, yeah, of the sound synthesis and the practice. And then we're gonna listen to a little bit of the stuff that I did here. And we can, like, afterwards, I would go a little bit more in depth and show like the mechanics behind all the stuff that's going on. And we can talk about it afterwards. Yeah. So yeah, I'm coming more from the visual design. I studied communications design in my bachelor's and then slowly became more and more interested in the sound world and graduated in sound design and finished my master's degree afterwards also in sound design in the time-based media department of Hamburg University of Applied Sciences. And yeah, I'm working mostly with linear media like film sound, and I'm specializing in animation, like sound design for animation, which you will find mostly on my website and stuff online. But I'm also interested in like theater and performance projects, which I'm doing from time to time. And I've also like this project, this what I'm doing here right now. It's I started it in 2021 just as a side project, and I was working from time to time on it, and had some like I was also incorporating it in my performances, but I haven't like focused so much as now uh, on the development. So the project is about uh, developing a gesture-driven audio performance or performance tool. And I want to make the process of sound design, I want to make it interactive, and I want to be able to control the spatiality of sound. Since it's like a multidimensional, I don't know if you probably all have seen it, but I'm using these old-fashioned gaming joysticks as controllers. And that's basically the tool that I'm developing. And since it's a multidimensional tool itself, I also have this goal in mind to have a spatial sound tool. Now, and also one thing that I'm aiming for is to be able to create a concert that's filling the entire evening with only these tools. I have two of them, and to have like such a broad variety of possibilities that I can play a concert that doesn't get repetitive after some time. Um, yeah, why am I using these joysticks? So it was like a coincidence. I saw them somewhere, and I got them, and then they were like not used anymore, and I thought this would be like a great tool. And yeah, so I'm developing this instrument, the spatial sound instrument. I'm working with these joystick controllers. I'm working with Max MSP to translate the data from the USB data from the joysticks to MIDI, which I then can use in Ableton and Ableton Live. You probably know it. There's also Max for Live, which is like Max MSP is this patching environment. It's like a visual programming tool. Um, and yeah, Ableton Live is more the sound design tool. Yeah. And so these are the two main fields, like sound synthesis and sound design. That's the creative part, and also the performance and the composition. And on the other side, it's developing these mechanics and finding the parameters to control and this kind of stuff. Um, yeah. Spatial audio is, I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of spatial audio. It's basically audio that is more than just one point source, but also envelops you. It's a very fundamental concept that applies to any sound in the real world also, because any sound is spatial. Any sound is moving through space and reacting with the space around us. And we always hear not only a sound source, but we also hear the environment around ourselves. So spatial audio is not so much just about like a multi-channel surround sound system or something, but it's more of a concept to how we perceive space through sound, or like how space is incorporated into sound. And that's a very, very interesting field. I would strongly suggest to, if you're interested in sound, to also dive into this universe. Because we all have the ability to hear sound spatially, and due to our ears, they are very, very, very precise tools we have on the sides of our head. And yeah, it's a very interesting mix of physicality, then uh, acoustics, and also perception and cognitive processing. So, and all of this comes into play in psychoacoustics, which is also a field that you will encounter as soon as you um, start immersing yourself into this spatial audio world. It's the way we perceive sound. So I will give an example. For example, when you have a sound coming from one direction, the sound is not only like what is happening when we perceive the sound is that we have, of course, different intensities in one ear to the other, so we can locate it somewhere there. This is also what happens when you have stereo panning. You just move the gain faders of the left and right channel. So you have the intensity difference, but then also when you hear the sound from the left or the right, you have a time difference. So first it comes here, then it comes here. So also this takes part. Then we have the shape of our ears. It's a very complex shape that kind of filters the frequency based on the direction of the sound. So if a sound comes from the front, it also has a different spectral quality than from the side. Then we have the whole cognitive factors, which is then like how the sound is processed in your brain. Because when you, for example, focus on a sound, then you are aware of the sound and you can listen to it. It's different than just a sound is existing somewhere and you're hearing it. You're just perceiving it, but you're maybe filtering it even out, like the clock on the wall or something. And also, so this also is a big factor. And also, if what's the meaning behind the sound? If the sound has a meaning, many sounds are like known to us, so we always associate something, and it always resonates with us or not, and it plays also a very big role. So when you are designing sound, you always have to take all of these things into account, especially when you're designing spatial audio. So the psychoacoustic aspects also. And then there's also, of course, the technical side. It's hard to define where spatial audio begins and where it ends, or it probably doesn't end somewhere, but where it starts. Like a mono sound source would not be considered spatial audio, even though it's taking place in a space. But stereo would also, like, you can discuss if it's already spatial, because you can kind of, you have a plane that's in front of you where you can move sounds around on one dimension. And then you can also communicate depth, for example, with different parameters that are not like, because depth is something that we can only perceive through like the width of a sound, and then also the spectral characteristics. So if a sound source is moving away from us, it's, of course, the level is lowering, the spectral composition is different. It's like the high frequencies are dropping a bit more than the low ones. So take, for example, the party on the other side of the street, or like in the next, I don't know, a few kilometers away, you only hear the bass frequencies. that travel a long distance, or like elephants, they have infrasonic sound, or whales, they use it to communicate over long distances. Uh, then, of course, you can communicate depth with the acoustics. So if sound becomes more reverberant, if you hear more of the reflections of the space, it's probably not up close. It is not up close. So all of these things all of the psychoacoustic elements can be broken down into more like more into certain parameters that you can work with to create depth, for example. So if you design depth, you can take make use of these acoustic or like audio parameters, sound design parameters. Um, then you always have the peculiarities of the ear of our perception. It's that, for example, our hearing is not linear. It's like it has certain sensitivities in the area of uh, the voice, for example, where the speech is located. It's the human voice. It's very sensitive, and then in some other areas, it's not so sensitive. So this is something to consider, or like there's the precedence effect. It's when you have spatial audio set up around you and you have multiple loudspeakers, for example, and you're sitting up close to one of them, or like on one side, not in the sweet spot. You probably know the concept of sweet spot. But if you're not sitting in the sweet spot, but located somewhere on the sides, then the sound tends to drop, to fall into one of the speakers. Like, and that's the precedence effect. That is also something you're confronted with when you do sound design. It's something that you also, for example, have in cinemas. Then you have this thing that our perception is working always in groups. Like the way we process information cognitively is we group things together, and when you have certain sounds that come from roughly the same direction and have roughly the same spectral information, then we tend to group them together. And this is also something to consider. So you kind of have to find ways to work around these things. For example, if you want to create a very wide and immersive sound field, you would want to decorrelate the sounds. So you don't, for example, when you take a stereo recorder and you record left and right, you have some kind of correlation between the left and right. So there is some things that overlap that are similar. And these things might lead to the precedence effect, so that the sound is shifting to one side or the other, and you can work against it when you have like two different signals. Then it doesn't fall so much into one direction. So these are the spatial aspects. I hope it wasn't too confusing or complicated. But this is something that I find very fascinating and interesting, and there's lots and lots to discover. And then so this is something that I'm integrating into the workflow or into my practice, or I try to at least. I have to be aware of them, and then I have to kind of deal with them. And on the other side is the aspect of sound design, of like of sound synthesis. So there's you always have to create a sound that is located in space. It's not only space itself that sounds. Even though you can hear space, everyone can hear space with two ears. When you just, for example, when you come into a room and close your eyes and you don't know anything about the size or the space, you can kind of still, without making a sound and just listening to the environment, you can kind of tell the dimensions of the space already. So this shows how well the spatial auditory system works. I find it very fascinating. You can test it when you just put your hand next to the ear. You can hear the hand, even though you don't create any sound. You can hear the space, the object in space. Um, yeah, so these are like, this is one side, and the other side is sound synthesis. And I am working here, I'm working quadraphonic with a quadraphonic setup. That means four loudspeakers, and it's a 4.1 system, so I have a subwoofer down below. And I'm creating the synthesis based on different approaches. Like I'm not using only one approach, but several. And one is, for example, um, that I am generating MIDI notes with the joystick controller, and I can trigger them with the trigger in front. And I can then just use these MIDI notes as like it's a digital signal, of course, and I can use them to trigger like a digital synthesizer, for example. And then I can use them in a more musical approach. So just like you would play a piano, you can play the the synthesizer with MIDI notes. And this is, I have divided the two joysticks. So joystick number one is more musical, more harmonic, more tonal. And joystick number two is more noisy, more sound design based, so more abstract. And the second approach is triggering a digital synth with one note, but modulating its parameters. So you can, for example, modulate the you can do frequency modulation, you can do amplitude modulation, you can scroll through a wavetable, and you can use another wavetable to modulate the wavetable. So all these kind of things you can do simultaneously because you have a multidimensional controller. This is a more abstract, more, it's the same, it's kind of the same way of creating sound because you're pushing a MIDI note to a synthesizer, but it's different in a way that it's more like an abstract sound design approach. Then the third method would be to use granular synthesis. I don't know if you're familiar with this concept. It's um, that you divide a sound into very small snippets and you repeat them in very, very fast pace to create a more complex, richer sound. Like it creates one new sound. And I think this has been, for me personally, the most interesting approach to use because it kind of integrates this organic um, quality that you have with samples, with real recorded audio, and still it's kind of a synthesis method that lets you modulate many, many different parameters. And you can also, when you exchange the audio, you get a complete different result and still can use the same mechanics. And the fourth method that I'm using is not really a synthesis method, but it's something that I developed over performing with these tools because I realized that it's in the early stages, it was very hard for me to create this great variety, great diversity of sounds. So I had to come up with something to fill the space. So I was pre-producing quadraphonic soundscapes that can be played in a loop, and also in some film productions and theater productions. I have gathered all these soundscapes, and now I have like, I don't know, maybe 20 different soundscapes that are all quadraphonic or hexaphonic, but here I'm using quadraphonic setup. And then you can use the controls to move through these different layers of quadraphonic spaces. It's also a very interesting concept because the movement itself is not generated by your movement of the controller, but it is inherent into the soundscape. So you have movement already recorded into the soundscape, and you scroll through the different layers. Uh, and also you can modulate them based on your controls. So you have these pre-produced ambiances or soundscapes where you can like perform, and they are just rich and working and they're enveloping, and then you can perform on them, like use the soundscapes as kind of a bed for the performance. Um, and then I also have the challenge of finding the right mechanics. But maybe this I can show you afterwards, because I always have to find uh, to I have to develop methods in which I'm able to perform live in a very like intuitive way and in a way that I want to do my sound design. So because I'm myself doing the sound design, it's very interesting for me because I can always go back to the tool, to the mechanics of the tool and change the tools or the mechanics there and go back to the sound design again. And then I have another possibility. So there are certain mechanics that are already there when you have such a tool. So you have, for example, on here you have of course the x and the y axes, which would be just the x and the y axis, and then you have the z axis, which is a twist of the handle. Then you have a fader here. So these are all the fluent data kind of faders that you can control continuously. And then you have buttons, which would, for example, be these down here. They just click and you can have a 1 or a 0 outputted. Um, and the faders are always, for me personally, the most interesting because they offer me a great variety of modulation, whereas the button is just an on and off, and I have like just two values to use. So I kind of found ways in which I am able to have, for example, slewed buttons, which is I press a button and then it's not going from 0 to 1 instantly, but it's slowly fading up and down. This is how I control the spatial soundscapes. Yeah. And maybe that's enough talking for now. Um, and I would show you some of the stuff. Yeah, so we can have a listen together on how it sounds.
That sounds good. Do you think there's a chance that we could hear a little bit more? Just because Mark was asking a little bit about
Ah, yeah, I'm
ambisonics.
just seeing now. There's a question about ambisonics. So I myself, I have been using ambisonics a lot in other venues, but here I'm working channel based. So I have channel based panning tools. I have I have, I think I have an ambisonics tool also in there, which is then translated to quadraphonic, but I'm not using the ambisonics here. But there is this, he's asking for the orders. So there's this concept of ambisonics, which was, it's a file format that was invented in the 80s. And it's a very, very, very smart concept for spatial audio. It's basically not channel based as like surround or even Dolby Atmos, like new formats that incorporate height into the setup. But there's ambisonics, which is the sound field. So you get like you have ambisonics tools, like an ambisonics panner, for example, where you can move on a sphere, where you can move your point source around, or you have ambisonic convolution reverbs, or like any kind of room response. So you have ambisonics tools, and then you can save this file as a sound field, which is like an encoded audio, multi-channel audio file, um, where all the spatial information is baked into the encoding. And then you can decode this file that you then have for different setups. And that's what it makes so smart about it, is that you can then render your file, for example, surround or like 5.1, 7.1, Atmos, whatever setup you need, quadraphonic or even binaural, you can render. And yeah, this is very, very, very handy and smart because it's working in a different way. And yeah, there's A format, B format. I don't know exactly how many channels which one has, but I think the most common one is B format, which has 4 channels, I suppose. Correct me if I'm wrong. And this is used mostly for like VR headsets or like augmented reality stuff. So whenever you have head tracking options. So when you incorporate when you're using VR, for example, when you're working on sound design for a VR project, you always have to use ambisonics, or you don't have to, but it's the way you would do it, because you can then you're able to use this ambisonics file and decode it live based on the tracking of your head, on the movement of your head. So you have like some kind of sensor, maybe in the goggles, or some headphones have like a sensor, a gyroscopic sensor on the head, on the top. And then you can tilt or roll, or like you can move your head around, and it's the sound field is then decoded to whatever direction you're looking into. Um, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but for the ones who don't know ambisonics, it's probably interesting to hear. Yeah.
Thanks for telling us more about that. I definitely personally want to look more into ambisonics.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Did you want to give us a demonstration?
Yes, I will just quickly share my screen. So I'm gonna share, that's new to Zoom. You can only share the windows and not the screen anymore. So I'm gonna share these 2 windows, which are relevant um, to my project. So this one is the Max MSP patch, where I'm processing the information coming from the joysticks. And I always have to, when it starts up, it looks like this, and I have to find which one is which, because whenever I plug the joysticks in, the computer doesn't really know which one is which, because they are the same device. So I found this as a workaround. So I have to click on them, and I see, okay, this is joystick 1, joystick 2, and then they are on. I can also turn them off, like deactivate them. It's very useful. And then I have this notes tool, which I'm going to talk about later when we go more in depth, but it's also basically like a tool where I have more options for fading sound. And then you can see down here, there is like something saying joystick 1, layer 1, and joystick 2, layer 2. I have two buttons where I can switch between the layers. And this is giving me, I have one part of the joystick, which is this up on top. And it has four different directions. It's also like a mini joystick on top of the joystick. I think that's very sweet. But it's only four directions, and I want to have eight. So I'm switching between two layers, and then I have more options. Then I'm sending another MIDI message to another channel. And yeah, I can switch between. It's kind of like a tab. And because the joysticks are quite jittery, the information that comes from them, sometimes it's, especially with joystick number one, it's kind of, when it's standing still, it's kind of jittering. I have tried to smoothen it out a little bit, but it's still, since it's so many parameters, it can be that it's all jittery. So I designed this solo control. I can just click on one and then I have it soloed, so I can map it to certain parameters. Yeah, okay, so first off, I can, this red one is joystick one, and the blue greenish one is joystick number two, and I can turn them on. Right now the window is in front. Yeah, so I can, so this is, I don't know, can you hear it? Can you hear it? Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, maybe that gives you an impression. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that gives you a rough impression. It's not the best setup right now because I couldn't really listen to what I was doing. I don't know, because of the Zoom settings. I heard a little bit, but not too much. And of course, you're also listening to like a stereo down mix. It wasn't even rendered binaurally because I didn't have the time to put a binaural renderer in it, and but if you are interested um, in joining the concert tomorrow at 5 p.m., I'm gonna play a little performance here in the studio space, and then it's gonna be a bit more immersive, of course, and a bit more spread out, and like I show you all the possibilities. Yeah, feel free. It's in room number, I don't know really. Yeah, but it's in the fourth floor in the IEA. Yeah, shall I do? Yeah, I would just do a quick walk through the setup here that I have. Oops. For those who are interested in how it works, how the mechanics work. Um, so what I have here, maybe if you see, I don't know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen too?
I definitely appreciate getting the visual on the
Oh yeah,
controllers.
okay. So I have back here, I have these controls for like selecting the instrument that I'm playing and the mechanics. Or maybe I show you first the max patch. It's maybe easier to understand then. So the max patch looks a bit messy. Don't be afraid here. But this is what it's like. Um, Yeah, I started it 2021 and now I kind of always develop it a bit further, but it's some parts I guess can be made more efficiently, but I'm also not, I have to admit I'm not the best at max patching. I always have to kind of find ways to find workarounds. Yeah, so basically what it does is the central element of the of this patch is the HI instrument object, which is this one here. It's the human interface in object, and you can in previous versions this kind of didn't exist or like it wasn't working with the joysticks. So I had to use the serial data, which is very a lot of data, and it's very this is much more handy, and the data comes out as like this. I can show you. Oops, which one is it? This one here. So you always get like an index number, which would is in this case 21, and then you get a value with it. And the value is, I think it has a range until it differs a lot, and it has a range until 126 or so. So you need to scale it to 127 to be able to work with it in MIDI format. So here I'm taking the data, I'm focusing on the joystick that I want to interpret. And then I'm routing all the input data to different outputs. So I can scale them up and I can do various things with them. Um, this, for example, is just a note. It's the only note that comes out. It's this here. Um, and all the others are control values. Yeah. So, and then we have like buttons. And these ones, the four you see here, so this is like all different kind of mechanics. You have the kind of shoot button, which is like on off and triggering a note. Then you have just the usual 0 to 127 values. It would be a button. And then I want to have like because I'm selecting various instruments, I want to be able to arm each instrument. So when I'm going into Ableton, you see I'm choosing an instrument down here. And this works in a way that one channel is receiving 127, so it's going on, and one channel is and all the other channels are receiving 0, because I need to be able to arm several tracks at one time to play 2 joysticks. But yeah, this is the mechanics for sending 127 to this channel, this button that I'm pressing, and all the others are receiving a 0. So this is this. And then I created this little subpatch here. It's a slow control. It's basically slewing the values. It's what it does when I'm pressing, like, it needs to be on, of course, it needs to be running. So I press play first, and then if I go up here with this little joystick on the joystick, you can maybe hear, I don't know if it's already coming, but it's slowly going um, play to increase the volume or open up the filter of the quadraphonic soundscapes. So this is the mechanics of that, and here you can put in if it's like in 5 seconds, if it's a 5-second slew, or like 7.5 seconds. Yeah, and this is, I think, for the solo control. I don't know. Yeah. I can also show you how it's made in Ableton. So, for example, with this, I don't know, where do I have it? With this here, this is the latest one. I can play like this. So this is like it's processing the MIDI information with an arpeggiator and pitch and random velocity and stuff. So this is the MIDI part. Then I have this instrument part, which has several instances of different instruments. So a drum rack with, for example, I can choose this. It's rock kind of sound. And it's all these samples being triggered in a very fast pace, and I can control the speed of the pace with the y-axis. And then there's all kinds of different instances there. And then I'm processing it with audio effects, and I can control the parameters of the audio effects with the macro buttons. So I first have to find out a way to with what sounds interesting, and then I map it to a certain macro button, and then I only have to map these buttons to the controllers. And in the end here, you see I have a surround panel that's going in track 1 and 2. It's a bit of a workaround because Ableton is not capable of doing multi-channel audio, which is a pity. But yeah, this is a workaround. So you send 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 in the first 2 channels, and these are my master channels that are going to, right now, just only 1 and 2 to have like, but usually it goes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And the master is muted. And another thing that I realized with this working for some time with the joysticks is that I wanted to have more faders, because faders are the most interesting thing to work with. So I found a way, which is this here, the nodes object, to to generate more fades throughout the controls. So I have basically 9 points in this field, which is these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And they are sending information from 0 to 1, I suppose. Yeah, and the take, for example, if you take, for example, the number 9 here, I go to the last value here, and you get a 0 when I'm not in the area of the node, and when I'm approaching it, I slowly get to 1. And this is also sent as a MIDI message to Ableton, and it allows me to have more possibilities of sound design. So I only have to do small movements, small gestures with this with the tool, and I get uh, more diverse sound.
Hey Max.
Yes, please.
So we're coming up on the question time, I think. This is
Yeah,
a
of
really great
course.
demonstration. Uh I'd just like to kind of maybe open up uh the space. I think some people are asking about maybe like what choices in sound design are you making perhaps like with the granular synthesis perhaps like what samples are you picking from?
Uh, I think it really is just a trial and error because I realized that lots and lots of things don't really work out. And some things are interesting. For example, this stone kind of layer was interesting because it has a kind of a punch to it and still some transient information and also like spectral complexity. And then a second layer was added to have this gravel, this debris a little bit afterwards. So you always have to kind of work against this synthetic sound also. Like when you do the granular synthesis with some sounds, it's kind of becoming a bit. It doesn't sound so interesting to my ears. So yeah.
Have you ever considered bring like incorporating a method of live sampling into the practice like
Yeah,
a
I have also done
microphone?
this.
Yeah.
I have once worked with a singer and a oboist. He was playing the oboe.
Oh yeah.
So I had microphones on both of them, and then I used the granulator by Robert Henke. It's the developer of Ableton. He developed some very interesting tools also, and granulator is one of them where you can capture audio and you can scroll through the captured audio. But I try to, this is something that I have learned from performance projects and theater project is that it's kind of nice to, it's good to have like interactive and like an open system to have an interaction with, but it's also good to have pre-produced things that are like working in a very linear way because if it's in the end it's what comes out is the most is what it's all about, and I think you can really reduce the risk of like something not working if you're minimizing the CPU load, for example. So
Mhm.
this is also an aspect that's a challenge, yeah.
So there's a modality there between uh, pre-produced material and the potential for live material.
Yeah.
And it seems like you've built through trial and error and other types of work, kind of a library of different ambient spaces that you're working in. But I guess
Yeah.
the question is like, what what other ways are you thinking? Like, because you at the beginning of your talk, you brought up ideas of modality, I guess.
Yeah. Ah,
What
okay.
sorts of thinking are you?
So there's, for example, there's this thing of the pitch being high or low. So this is like cross-modal similarities when you have a sound is like warm or cold, and you kind of everybody knows it kind of. It can change from like perception to perception, from subject to subject. But it's something that that's very interesting. Like I find, for example, when you use a lot of high frequency content in your audio and very narrow bands, spectrum and like lots of transients, then you have like lots of possibilities to create movement in sound that is very distinct. And whereas like on the other hand, when you have like low frequencies that are like with a subwoofer, it doesn't matter where it stands because it's everywhere. And when you have certain low frequencies and you have like broadband signal and you have no like you have very slow moving uh, you have no attacks, no transients, then it's rather difficult to locate the sound. So this is something that you come across, for example. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, we're kind of like grazing on topics of sound design and the psychoacoustics for mechanics, but also um, would you describe your process or your practice as a musical practice, or is this just an element of the sound design practice? Or would you say it's not musical?
I think it depends strongly on where you draw the line between music and abstract sound. But I think like also an abstract sound performance can be considered music, which I quite
Okay.
like this approach. Um, but if you mean like to use like a Western scale, for example, as I was using you heard in between this piano being played, something like this, and like harmonics and like all of this stuff. I think I'm always a bit more drawn to abstract sound and to like this very kind of haptic qualities to sound and textures and this kind of stuff. I guess that also comes from working as a sound designer mainly. So I think I'm yeah, I think but it's also interesting to incorporate musical ways. But yeah.
Cool. Is there anything on your website you'd want to direct us to do more research on what you're working on, like what other projects you're working on, or like what's going on next with you?
Okay. I haven't thought about it. So, yeah, I have this project which is just quite fresh and new, and I just tapped into this field, and there is church organs. It's like a very, 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 very complex instrument, which has like hundreds of possibilities and buttons and to possibilities to shape the sound, which I wasn't aware of. Like I was aware of the church organ being this monstrous instrument that you can pull registers and play different sets of pipes, but there are certain church organs that like have a crazy wide range of sounds that they can produce. And there's this concept called hyper organ, which is, I think, also from the 60s or so, where people started developing church organs or like where people started to incorporate more electronics into church organs. And now there's these hyper organs all around the world where you can play organs with MIDI information. And I'm just right now in contact with one church that has this kind of setup and also some very weird new flutes from the 60s. And this is probably like my next project for the next year or so is to compose a piece for the church organ, which also has this focus on more of the sound design side and less like a liturgian,
Liturgical?
like a classical conventional church musical context. Yeah. Because you can, for example, do things like control via MIDI. You can control the airflow of the complete organ, which is very, very interesting because then you can power the air, which makes the flute go into higher uh, overtones. And then you have kind of this weird mystical wind instrument sound, or like in lower register and lower lower pressure, it kind of slowly goes down or fades away or tilts, shifts. It's very interesting. Yeah.
That sounds very exciting, especially with the MIDI controller you're developing for could be many possibilities.
Yeah.
I I don't want to. Oh,
Also, there's
any
someone
questions?
mentioning pure data.
Oh yeah, yeah. What are your feelings about pure data?
Yeah, I have started using, I have worked for my bachelor's. I was writing a program where you can translate colors into sound. And it was like an installation where you would be immersed into the color and into the sound. And there's like a relation to both of them. And then you would have a camera and place things in front. And the color would be mapped into this space. And I think it's very, very similar, Pure Data and Max MSP. I think Max MSP is like has a much better visual appearance, and it's very you get lots of resources, but it comes from the same place, I have the feeling. So some things are different, but I think you can, if you're interested in this node-based patching environment, I think then Pure Data is also a good place to start. I don't know if it's supported really, if there's n new Pure Data versions nowadays. But yeah.
Nice. Well, I suppose I'm just going to remind everyone that's in the Alfred area that there will be your performance tomorrow at 5 in Harder room 425. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. I think uh, it'll be a really great experience. Um, but I think it's maybe time to wrap it up. Let's thank you so much for your chat. It's your piece is very exciting, new realms for music and sound design. And yeah, I hope people check out your website and your socials and keep up with what you're working on. And I think that Oregon project's gonna be just fantastic. But yeah, that's all I got. I think is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap it up?
Um, I don't know. I think I would strongly suggest to go into the sound world if you're not already there. Yeah.
Cool, for sure. Yeah. Oh yeah, by the way, I keep forgetting. I'm supposed to introduce myself. My name is Max. I'm an undergrad student at Alfred. My last name is Coker. I don't have anything else to say. Alfred's a great school. I'm interested in sound. We have great facilities for exploring sound, and people who are interested in expanding their education can do it. They don't have to be just out of high school. So come to Alfred and learn sound. We need more people to do sound stuff. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you, Max, also.
yeah, of course. Yeah. See
And
you
thanks for
tomorrow.
being here, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for coming.